Hello guys, welcome back. You are tuned into Kim E, the Diabetes NP. So we are now in the month of May. It is Nurses Month, as we know, but also it is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I wanted to bring on some of my nurse friends that have some great insight, and tying this in. We're all aware of how nurses are really burned out. The news has told us a lot of people are leaving the bedside, a lot of people are leaving the profession. And so I wanted us to kind of talk about that today. And so I'm bringing on one of my dear friends, Nicole Thomas, Dr. Nicole Thomas. Let me get that right. And I'm going to allow you to tell us about yourself first.
Yeah, so I have been a registered nurse now going on 18 years. Background started pretty traditional like most nurses. Well, let me say most nurses back then, because the new nurses now, I love what they're doing. They're not following that traditional path, and I love that. But I started out in med-surg, worked at a local charity hospital here, which was a teaching hospital, learned so much information from there. I went on into home health care, because at the time I had a small 2-year-old. 12-hour shifts were just not 12-hour shifting right with having a small kid. So I went into home health care, and then in 2008, I went into the world of managed care. And I like to say that that's where my career was born, as it relates to what I do now and really and truly finding my place. That's where I really learned the healthcare aspect of the business aspect, rather, of healthcare, and how we really and truly need to know as nurses how to navigate those complexities and those things that exist, because healthcare is a business. Someone has to pay the bills, right? To be able to really and truly propel the nursing profession, and as well as healthcare overall, forward as in terms of patient healthcare outcomes, healthcare access, healthcare equity. So I do all of those different things via my consulting firm, Impact Nurse Consulting, where we work with various organizations to help them to develop different programming that's geared toward improving those patient healthcare outcomes. So that's just a little bit about me. I do a plethora of other different things. But that's just a little bit about me and my background.
You are one of those people who you see no limits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you do everything, right? And it's funny because I believe that we are one of the few professions that we actually can wear a lot of hats under our degree,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that a lot of people understand that. I don't think they see that.
Right.
I think a lot of times, and even as a nurse practitioner, I'll talk to colleagues and it's always about clinical, which is great. Someone has to see the patient, but what if that's not what you want to do? And so one of the things I wanted to first ask you is, where did you get that from? Like, why, what opens your eyes really to the different paths that nurses can take?
Therapy. If I can be completely honest, it was therapy, right? And here's why I say that, while being a nurse very early on in my career, this is before I even left the bedside to go into home health care, I wanted to leave the profession 3 different times. I was like, I'm done, I'm out. This was 2 years in, right? And so I thought that I was going to go ahead and just pivot, go to law school, get a law degree. Every single time I would try to pivot outside of nursing, it would never work. And I'm like, why is it not working? Like, I'm applying to these different programs and they're telling me no, and I did well, and I have, all of these different things going on. And so it was through that time that I said, I really need to figure out what's going on with Nicole. And so it was through that I was able to really and truly identify who is Nicole? Outside of me being a nurse, outside of me having the credentials behind my name, who is Nicole as the person from a 360-degree perspective? Mm-hmm. And so it was through therapy that I was able to identify those things that make me honestly who I am, those things that I'm passionate about. And learning that passion alone will never sustain me. Passion is a pathway into purpose, and it's purpose where you actually start the building. That's where the fulfillment is, right? So it was through that journey of really, truly therapy and me identifying and tapping into a little bitty girl Nicole, right? The kid Nicole, to really identify those different things that made me passionate, that I can turn into or can lead into my purpose, so to speak, that led me to now do all the things that I do. And so now, even when I introduce myself, I rarely lead with I'm a nurse. Most of the time I start with, hi, they're like, hi, tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm like, yeah, well, my name's Nicole. I am a mom. I am a wife. I love community programming. I'm known as the builder. I can take any particular situation, build a program around it, improve the outcomes of that, and then build sustainable solutions so that can be sustained over time, and just talk about that aspect. Those things I like to do, and I always end with, oh, and I'm a nurse, right? Because I don't want, that's not who I am. It just so happens that that's what I do by profession. I'm so much more than that. And so I can honestly say that was the thing that helped me to realize that I can do so many different other things outside of just being a nurse. I had to get to know thyself first. I had to get to know thyself, and then everything else was added onto that.
There's been this clip that's been circulating around about like hundreds of thousands of nurses are leaving the bedside. I don't know if you saw that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been kind of viral on TikTok. I've seen it on Instagram as well. And like, why do you think that is?
That's an interesting question, because I see a lot of the articles that come out. The validity of those articles and the content that are in those articles, I do question a lot. That just goes into my other realm of, is this peer reviewed? Is this factual? And all of those different things. So I won't go there, but I really think that in a nutshell, what we're starting to see, because it does have some validity to it, right? In that nurses are starting to get more and more burnt out than historically than what we've seen, especially post-COVID. I honestly think a lot of that is because they truly don't know who they are and what they want. It's really and truly just that simple, but that complex. Who am I and what do I want, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a nurse, but what am I seeking from this career in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Let me stay focused on that and go with that. Let me not look to the left, to the right, to TikTok, to Instagram, to Facebook to tell me what it should look like for me, but what is it for me? And unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, because nurses a lot of times don't take the time to really and truly learn a lot about themselves, they kind of go with what everyone else is saying or what looks good for someone else. But just because it's good for them doesn't mean it's going to be good for you, right? Mm-hmm. I say this all the time, and I say it very, very humbly, but very, very, very firmly. You could never be Dr. Nicole Thomas. And I say that because the work that I've done to get to know myself, it's my makeup. Right? Yes, there are certain elements and aspects of what I do that can inspire you and that you can take some of those same paths. But to try to totally, do exactly what it is that I do and how I do it, that's where the unfulfillment comes. Because now when you're not getting the results that you see me getting, you start to get frustrated because it doesn't look like on you what it looks like on me. Right? Yeah. And so I think that that's a part of it. I do not want to negate the fact that there are some challenges and some areas of opportunity that we have within the nursing profession as a whole surrounding, staffing, patient to nurse ratios, and some of those other, administrative things. I do not want to negate that. That does have some things to do with it. But even in that, Kim, when we talk about that, it's really and truly identifying, and it's so funny, I just had this conversation with someone. It's really and truly identifying that, yes, this is where I work at. This is what I do. I'm going to show up here. I'm going to give 100% of myself. I'm going to make sure that at the minimum, I'm meeting the minimum set of expectations that have been outlined above me. Yes, I do want to go above that, but at minimum, I'm going to do that. And then when I'm done here at 7:00 and it's time for me to go home, whether it's AM or PM, I'm out. Like, that's it. I'm not taking that home with me. And so it becomes sometimes an identity thing. And I think that's why we're starting to see even more of an exit, especially in this social media climate. Social media, I definitely think, has it has kind of put some blinders on to what the real reality of it is. And so that's another thing, because it's a lot of frustration because look what Kim is doing. I want to do that. I want to wake up tomorrow doing what Kim been trying to do for the last 15 years. That's not how it goes. You know, so, I think that's the major element of it.
I think that when we were in COVID, I think nurses were so much the hero, you know? That came with, we like the sacrificial lamb in some cases. For some people, there was burnout there and, things going on there too. But now that we have kind of started to come back to baseline, it's like all that stuff that was said back then, it's like we're back to square one now. But life has definitely changed, because, there were lots of layoffs, there were furloughs, there were people that just didn't want to do it, and honestly, I think without the pandemic, we might not have known we would have come to some of these realizations. But like I have found, even in my own, even with my own work, I'll see like it's almost as if what we have learned over the past couple of years, it's like we've forgotten it in some cases. It's back to business as usual. What do you think about that?
So this is where I get in trouble sometimes. And the reason I say I get in trouble sometimes is just because I like to look at it from a different perspective. One of the things that I've learned being in business and running a business, even outside of the healthcare, realm, I still have a property business and things like that. Business is business. Business does not care how you feel today. Business does not care what happened in your personal life. Business does not care that your children are going haywire. Business does not care. The business has to run. And so when we think about healthcare and we think about what that means, we cannot forget that healthcare is a business. Somebody has to pay these bills. These hospitals are not open and operating just because they are taking care of lives. Somebody has to pay for that techoderm you put on. Somebody has to pay for that IV tubing. Somebody has to pay for the light switch that you go in and whether you have to cut it on or it automatically comes on when you go in the Pixie's room, whatever it is, somebody has to pay the bills. So when you say we're back to business as usual, it's a business and the business has to run. Now, the caveat to that is, and this is where I think that the development of you as a nurse comes into play, and not even always just as a nurse, just professional development, because a lot of the courses and classes and trainings and things that I've done have actually been outside of nursing or healthcare. It's been just straight up business. It's just been straight up, marketing, these type of things, right? That are traditionally they wouldn't ask a nurse to do. But it's so that I can learn, how does this really go in the background when it has to be business as usual? And so when we talk about getting back to business as usual post-pandemic, if we don't get back to business as usual, the business is going to flop. It's up to us as the individual who so happens to be a nurse to say, how am I going to make this business work for me? The business is going to do what they need to do so that they can survive. They have to. They have no other choice. How are you going to say, bet, I got your game, let's play the game together, right? And I say this because in one of my roles in 2014-15, I got a job as the Associate Director for Medical and Clinical Operations. So it was a Fortune 7 company I was working for at the time. I was the youngest African-American female nurse executive that literally ran this entire region, right, for this company in healthcare. And so one of the things that I was charged to do every year, Kim, was I had to find a way to save $3.2 million. When we went to that QBR, which stands for Quarterly Business Review, and they called you up, nothing else mattered but that green, that yellow, and that red. Green meant you were good to go. Yellow meant, listen, we got some problems. Let's kind of slow down and pump the brakes. Red meant you in trouble. What are you going to do? That's all that mattered, right? And so in that, I'm thinking to myself, but the community aspect of who I am as a person, wanting to help people, wanting to build different programs and projects and all of these things, this could be a solution to what we're seeing on the healthcare spending side, right? So I said, okay, bet, let's play ball. Y'all want to save $3.2 million a year? The communities that I'm responsible for, they need programming. They need different, entities set up here. Let's play ball. I'm going to help build these programs. Y'all go fund it. It's going to save you money. Everybody happy at the end. That's how we have to think. That's how we have to think. The business has to flow. It has no other choice, right? If not, you as a nurse you're not going to have a place to go to.
Yeah.
If they don't get back to business as usual, you're not going to have a place of employment to go to. And so I think that's where the development piece comes in, and where nurses can get more strategic to say, how am I going to make this work for me? And develop to get what I need, because one thing they can never do and take from you is the education and the knowledge that you gain. They can't take that.
Nicole, she's my mentor in my head. And me and her have had conversations, and she challenged me in some areas and opened my mind to some areas. And you're 100% right about networking. Like, one of the things that you had challenged me to do is to be a part of boards, be a part of committees, be in the community.
Yes.
You never know who knows who. One of the things you told me was to get on LinkedIn. That was the first thing I did, which I feel like as a professional, everybody should be on there.
Yes.
And you should, okay?
And you are killing it over there, by the way. I love it.
Well, thank you. And I did go after some boards, and boards that were not nursing based. They were healthcare related, but they allow people from the community to be a part of it as well. So there's multiple healthcare professions, but also people from the community to kind of be like the patient liaison, And to have that, to get out of that sphere of what we as the nurses talk about, or even we as the professionals talk about, really opens up your mind. And again, you never know who people know. You don't know who's this person's cousin, best friend. I have a church member who does this and who would love. I have got, just by getting out of my own way, I have taken meetings with people that I never thought that I would ever, and it's only because I met somebody.
That's right.
I just had a conversation with somebody.
That's right. It could be just have a conversation, just an authentic, real conversation. That's it.
How are you prioritizing your mental health, not only as a nurse, but a leader and a Black nursing leader?
Yeah. It's definitely my number one priority. How I've been able to effectively and impactfully manage my mental health is that I have very strict boundaries. Very strict boundaries, right? I have learned the power of one simple word: no. No explanation goes behind it. I will say no in a minute if it does not align, but this goes back, Kim, to me knowing myself, right? If it does not align, if it's not in alignment with the goals that I have right now, I'm going to say no. Right now, they know that if it is after 4:30, don't call Nicole. If the building is not burning down, and don't call me first if it is, call 911, because there's nothing I can do about it, right? Call me later and tell me the building is burning down, then I'll say okay and do whatever it is I need to do, but call 911 first. But if it's after a certain time, do not contact me. That's just my boundaries, right? If it is a weekend, or if I tell you, listen, I am going to be out of the office on these days, these times, this is my family time, do not call me. You can call me, but you will not get an answer, right? Unless it is absolutely an emergency, right? And so I think that we have to start building boundaries. But when I talk about building boundaries, Kim, it's really and truly knowing what aligns with me, because we hear the word boundaries all the time. Build boundaries, don't let people do this, don't let people do that. But what does that tangibly look like for you, right? And I think that's where it's important for us to really and truly start to talk about what is that boundary going to look like for me. Another example, if you are asking for a meeting with me, right? Before I agree to a meeting, I need an agenda. I don't have time to get in a meeting for us to talk about, well, how you been doing? I've been good. How you get? No, let's get to it. I am very, very transactional. Let's get to what the business is, right? And if I have time later on, we can circle back and we could just, chit chat and talk about other things. But you're going to send me an agenda as to what the meeting is about. So that's what I mean when I say tangibly knowing what those boundaries look like for you and how you're going to build those boundaries. Because you can't just tell people respect my boundaries or I have boundaries. They have to really and truly know what they are, right? Another one for me is emails. Anyone that knows me knows that if you're going to send me an email, start off with what the purpose of the email is, what the objective is that you need from me, and give me the bullet points. All the extra fluff, that's just not how my brain works. I traditionally, if I get an email like that, I look at it, my brain goes, oh wait, this is a lot. Tell me what you're trying to figure out so that we can get to, what the work is we need to do. And I'll respond back and say, hey, could you please call me or could you please summarize the ask in this email, right? That's what I mean when I say building boundaries, because what will happen is you're trying to comb and filter through things that other people have not made clear because they really and truly don't know what is clear, because they really and truly don't know what it is that they should be doing, because they haven't even done their preliminary homework and figured out their research to know. And now they want to come dump all of that on you and you have to comb through all these layers. No, we're not doing this. Mm-hmm. It's no impact there. This is not effective. This is not effective use of our time to get to an ultimate goal of what we're working on. So I would have to say, Kim, for me, mental health and protecting that wellness is building in those boundaries, but clearly identifying and defining what those boundaries are. And then the other thing for me is also stress management, right? It's knowing that stress is going to come. I don't care who you are, what you do, stress is going to come in some shape, way, form, or fashion. The question is, what are you going to do when the stress comes and how are you going to effectively manage that? One thing that I know we've seen a lot of through social media, which I love the actual campaign of it, I guess I would call it, is you don't have to be the strong one. You don't have to be the strong one. I want to live a soft life. I want to live a soft life. And the reality of that is, while it sounds cute and it's popular and it's trending, if you're going to make an impact somewhere within whatever it is you're doing, you're going to have to be strong, because you are going to be tested from the north, the south, the east, and the west, and whatever other direction it looks from. You have no other choice but to be strong. Here's the thing about that. You have to define what strong looks like for you. Because strong could be simply saying, I'm going to call people when I need help. Yeah. Strong could simply be saying that I'm going to build my boundaries surrounding what it is that I'm doing. Strong could be that I'm going to allow other people to hold me accountable to what it is that I say I'm going to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's also important, that stress management and really and truly outlining and defining what is stress management for me. Because those things are going to come. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time when. And we have to get the necessary tools. And my last one, Kim, I advocate for it all day, every day. Therapy. Like, even if you had an amazing childhood growing up, therapy does not necessarily mean that I had to have this traumatic thing happen in my life to go. No, if you are living every day in this world, you need some tools to help you with the different facets of it, dealing with people, dealing with situations, like all of this. It's a lot. And you need the tools to be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh, girl, that was okay. So that was really good. And I hope y'all are taking your notes, because she came to teach today, okay? But I know this is something that you do. This is not something you just talk about like just because. You do this in your real life. And so can you please tell the people, for one, where they can find you and if there's any resources that you can provide people when it comes to professional development?
Absolutely. So you can definitely find me across all social media platforms. Nicole Thomas Inc. Is my handle across all social media platforms. You can also find me on my website, which is NicoleThomasInc.com. You can also find any resources through a community that I have called the Nurse Power Network. We have a plethora of different resources there where we talk about finances, mental health, professional development, provides just a ton of different resources there. You can definitely find different things that are free for you there. We're getting ready to kick off some things for Nurses Week that are going to be free and intentionally helping nurses just with what we're talking about right now. And so we're definitely excited about that. So that's where you can find me. You can always find me somewhere building, wherever the impact is happening, that's where you're going to find me doing the real impactful work to move the needle forward.
All righty. Thank you, Nicole. This has been, it's always great talking with you. It's always great. I always leave with some nuggets, and I still remember all the conversations we have. So I really hope you all enjoyed this. Nicole, again, thank you for sitting down with me. You are a busy woman, as we can see. And y'all have been sitting here with Kim E, the Diabetes NP, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.